Well, good evening, everybody. We'll call the Old Town Planning Board meeting for May 8th, 2018 to order and get going on this. So I take it you're Randy Bragg?
I am.
Yes, good to see you. Okay, well, we'll get to you in just a second here. The first item of business is to approve the minutes of April 10th, 2018. I've looked them over, and anybody have any additions or changes?
Did you read them?
I did. I read them.
I didn't have a chance to.
I'm a speed reader.
I know, and I apologize for getting them out on Thursdays or Fridays to you guys. It's just,
You're fine.
No problem.
Yeah,
We appreciate it, thank you.
yeah.
Do we have a motion to accept the minutes as mailed?
Make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you, Dave.
thank you.
Okay. Item 3 is the amended site plan application for U-Haul of Stillwater Avenue, 629 Stillwater Avenue, tax map 18, lots 20, 21, 22, and 23, case number 1531. And would you like to walk us through what you plan to do there?
Sure. So my name is Randy Bragg from Carpenter Associates, and I'll be representing U-Haul this evening, who's the applicant. And they have an office, or they have a facility just a couple of lots up from my office on Stillwater Avenue, kind of near the Dairy Queen and the Sullivan's wrecker service there, if I get you in the right location. So there's 4 lots that they own currently. It's map 18, it's 20, 21, 22, 23, I believe. They're all kind of joined together. And it looks like they're looking to buy more land, so be careful if you're in that area. So they're always looking to expand. It's amazing how many folks need storage for some other things. So what the plan is on the unit that's farthest to the south or closest to the interstate, they're looking to put 2 10 by 50 units. I assume those are both going to be 10 by 10s, so each have 5 units apiece. Those are both going to set on slabs. Those will sit on impervious area, so we don't plan to disturb any of the impervious or drainage runoff from that site. It's already impervious. There'll be no power in those buildings at all, so no water, no utilities at all. So pretty straightforward there. And then the other storage facility they'd like to add is near their office, which is the farthest one closest to the Dunkin' Donuts. I'm sorry, the Dairy Queen. They're looking to put in a smaller 10 by 40 or 10 by 35, whatever fits within their gate. And what we find out the actual right-of-way line is, there was a little discussion between us, I know, and David and the DOT on where that line really is. But they obviously took over some land and include all the way across to the sidewalk. So we've got the right-of-way shown on here and a 40-foot setback so we're showing you that all of those structures will be outside of that setback. When they go to install it, we'll actually have a surveyor go out and locate that exactly so we don't make any mistakes with that. And that too will be on impervious area. That also will not have any power or any utilities to it, just cold storage. Again, will be just on a concrete frost wall slab, if you will. The bigger part of the project is a proposal for a 1,000-gallon LP storage tank. They're going to locate that on one of the central parcels. I believe it's on lot 22. And we also have that beyond the 40-foot setback. That will sit on a concrete pad with a frost wall. That'll also have a crash guard around it in case anybody comes up to it. We have also included a couple of bollards for that. Those are pretty standard items for those vertical tanks, if you will. So you can imagine a 1,000-gallon propane tank only standing on its end, standing high. It's about 10 or 12 feet tall. That's kind of what you're looking at. I think that we had one complete user's manual. We only gave it to Dave, but there's kind of a picture on the front of what it might look like if you're interested. That location will require power because we're going to propose to.
This looks a lot taller.
That's a taller one, much taller. That's probably a 5,000-gallon one. So.
There's a picture of it in the handout.
Got it.
That's the actual one, yeah. So we're gonna need power for this location. We're gonna grab that from the existing sales office. There's plenty of power within the existing panel there. We're gonna be able to provide gas for folks that wanna fill up their tank for their barbecue. But we're also gonna have a station for vehicles to come up and refuel there as well. And I think also we're adding a new sign to advertise for that sale. We're showing that sign on lot 22 as well, closer to the right of way, but within the setback limit for Old Town, so. Again, sample of that sign, I believe, is in that packet somewhere. So, again, we don't feel like we're impacting any traffic or any stormwater issues. It's within an acceptable zone. This is zone C3, I believe. It's just an expansion of what you've already seen there. Be happy to answer any questions that I can.
So, and that setback from the edge of the right-of-way highway is 40 feet?
Your building setback is 40 feet there.
The tank, though.
The tank is 40 feet, yes. The hatch pattern that you see there, we're asking a contractor to cut the pavement out and a little further than that because we know they're gonna disturb it, put in the concrete pad. If you felt comfortable us pushing it a couple more feet, I don't think that's a big issue either, but we've got it pretty close to that 40-foot setback. Trying to keep proper separations between the edge of the road and any close-by buildings.
So there's, look from the aerial photo, it looks like there's quite a distance between any building and that tank.
Yeah, we've got sufficient space for all of those. We check those fairly closely. We actually double-check those with Dave and make sure we have the proper setback, so.
And in item 12 of your findings, you state that there are no hazardous, special, or radioactive materials identified by federal or state agencies to be handled or stored, and all work shall adhere to NFPA 58. Can you give me a Whitman sampler, the Cliff Notes version of NFPA 58?
NFPA 58 is simply the code, like you would say, for NFPA 13 for sprinklers, but for propane tanks and propane storage.
So these are
pressure vessels,
are these national rules?
National standards.
National
these-
standards for propane tanks?
Yes.
And piping and valving and protection of those, setback requirements, all of that is part of that NFPA 58.
When
But-
when you have a
56.
propane tank set at your house, it has to meet the setbacks from NFPA 58.
Right. Okay.
So given a certain size will dictate, like a 100-pound cylinder you can put up against your building. If it goes to 250, you have a certain setback. If it's buried, you
10
can go a little
foot.
closer, but it's still a setback.
Right.
So if it's above ground, there's certain
So this
setback
is a
requirements.
1,000-gallon tank, so.
Pretty small, really, considering there's several establishments, restaurants and things that have multiples of these sitting out back. Usually they have Jersey barriers around them or chain link fence or something like that, but I think most restaurants you'll find, like McDonald's or.
Yeah,
Wendy's,
I've noticed them
Dairy
in
Queen,
several
all those
locations.
have several of them lined together.
So you're familiar with that, and you're fine with,
Yes, Dave Daniel, the fire inspector, and Deputy Chief Daniel, and I both went through this and got the books out and took a look at it.
okay. So these are all of the amendments to your existing site plan,
Correct.
okay? And you said they're looking to expand, future expansion would very likely be cold storage, or?
That's just, we've been doing a few other projects with them, not only here, but throughout the area in Bangor and
Yeah.
Waterville and other places where I didn't necessarily mean here, but,
Okay, all right.
but there does seem to be a good market for this industry. I'll say.
Yeah.
Anybody on the board have any
Will that
questions?
interfere with the retail space for the U-Haul dealership right there? And
We talked to Dave Martin, who's their manager, local manager, who couldn't be here tonight. We don't think that will interfere with their parking requirements there. They very rarely have the need for somebody to park there. It's usually somebody.
To put the trailers there.
Right, I think they're gonna have to reconsider where they put those. Those will probably be out inside the gate now instead of outside. They've talked about possibly relocating that gate back 10 feet to the next notch in the building. to kind of facilitate a little space around that a little better, but
And there are enough parking spaces, Dave, over there for retail of that size?
Yes.
And
it's a pretty small office. Some of
Yeah,
that
it
building
is,
is
but
already
it's a
heated
retail
storage.
floor space.
Yep.
And I didn't know if that would impede there.
Nope, it's good.
Okay. Anybody else on the board have any concerns or questions? I see a member in the audience, sir. Are you interested in commenting or
No.
on this? Okay, all right. Well, very good. Well, it seems pretty straightforward. I do appreciate U-Haul submitting the site plan revision. The primary concern obviously was to make sure it met the safety standards.
Sure.
It was enough of a change that we felt that
Yeah.
it should be addressed. But it is pretty straightforward. And
There is also a full user's manual for all of their U-Haul's regulations, on top of your regulations and NFP 58 as well. So those are their standard guidelines.
the
which are
U-Haul,
U-Haul's standard
Okay.
guidelines, so
okay.
they're pretty detailed.
Yeah, they are.
Well, you've done I think
course.
done a great job of explaining, the standards and what you're doing to address any concerns there. So with, with that in mind, I need to go through and just review the findings of fact, which I have here. Oh, they're right there. Yeah.
Is
Put them out there so I
is
wouldn't.
there a
have to
roof
hunt
or
for 'em.
something gonna be installed near this tank for foul weather purposes, if you're filling a tank or?
Not at this time, there's no portico or canopy to stand under while you're filling your tank up, so
Yeah.
you don't get wet. It's just, you're on your own.
But it's gonna be someone that, the public's not gonna be able to fill their own tanks, or are they?
No, it's
Okay.
gonna be a attendant.
Attendant.
Like,
So he
if
needs,
you've been on Broadway in Bangor, they have a little
it's,
house, but there's no
Right.
cover. You stand there and you gotta go get somebody to fill your tank up for you.
okay.
And if it's raining, they'll put a raincoat on.
They shouldn't be getting their barbecue tanks filled up anyway.
Okay, all right. The findings of fact that we are required to go through for this, we go through without objection. I'll read through the findings that we have required for site plan review. And stop me at any time, obviously, if you have a concern. But I'll go through those, and without objection, we will then ask for a motion on those findings of fact and move on from there. Number one is the utilization of the site. The plan for the development reflects the natural capabilities, as it has always been utilized as a U-Haul for the past few years. So we're fine there. Traffic access and parking. The vehicular access is well established, curb cuts, and the only additional traffic will be for filling up propane tank. It's hard to imagine that they'll be lined up around the block for that, so.
Yeah, there's plenty of excess parking within that lot too, to
Yeah, you
half a
see
dozen
that.
vehicles at least.
The site plan provides for a system of pedestrian ways. There is a sidewalk there, and you're 40 feet away from that, roughly, or 35 feet, something like that.
40 feet beyond the right-of-way, which is further.
Does that include the sidewalk there?
Sidewalk's on the other side of the right-of-way, so it's further than 40 feet away from there.
Okay, yeah. Stormwater management, the site is designed so that post-development stormwater runoff does not exceed the pre-development stormwater runoff. You have drains and ditches and culverts that are already there, and nothing's changed.
We actually did the stormwater management plan for this years ago when they did a couple of the additions out here and did the crossing across the road, so we're very familiar with that and the underground storage that they have currently. So,
As there will be very minimal disturbance of the impervious areas, there shouldn't be any concern about erosion control or siltation of nearby water bodies. I don't see any problem there. The applicant has demonstrated that the project will have an adequate water supply. There's existing water, as is the sewage. It's served now by sewage.
there's no need for water or surge for the
Right.
addition.
The development already has electrical, telephone, telecommunication services, and other than the tank, there are no new utilities going to be
No,
installed.
The only utility we need is power, and that will come from on-site.
The landscape isn't going to change any. You are going to have a guard around that tank, just to basically stop vehicles from backing into it. And
It'll be a yellow crash barrier, and we also have installed a couple of bollards, which we will also probably paint yellow as well for
Yep.
warning,
Okay.
but no plantings.
Water quality, there shouldn't be any impact on water quality. We've already talked about hazardous, special, or radioactive materials. There will be none other than the propane, and you will adhere to National Fire Protection Act 58 for, as well as U-Haul's own regulations regarding safety. There's no shoreland to be concerned with. The applicant has demonstrated that they have financial and technical capability to carry out the project, as evidenced by the site plan revision. Solid waste management, there's going to be no changes to your solid waste plans.
No, the only solid waste would be come from the tenants that use the spaces.
Right.
For example, dumpsters for those folks to use that.
There's no historic or archaeological resources that we know of. Floodplain management is not an issue. Exterior lighting is not going to change. There'll be no lighting near the tank.
There,
There may be, so that they can read the,
Yeah,
it's not to light up the,
the whole area, just going to be, there may be some lighting.
the actual sign though is proposed to be lit.
the sign.
Yeah, just the sign though.
Okay. And there's no, other than the safety, the crash barriers, there's no other screening that needs to take place, and then this is basically an outdoor sale. And the only outside sales will be the dispensing of propane in appropriate containers.
Correct.
All right. Well, those are the findings of fact. Thank you for putting that together so concisely so that we could go through it. And any further discussion or questions?
I think Dave did that part.
Were there any objections by any neighbors or any,
No, as you saw in the packet,
a list of the names?
the list of the names, and in fact, the
We
people
did.
from
We didn't object.
Dairy Queen were in today, and that's what I thought they were here for, but no, they're gonna do an addition perhaps on their building, so
Okay.
nobody couldn't take.
Will that be a site plan review or?
Yep.
And sir, you have any questions or comments? Okay, you're the only one here, so it didn't take long to ask. All right, well, with that in mind, then I would like to entertain a motion, invite a motion to approve the site plan as presented with the findings of fact without objection.
I will make that a motion. You just read it, so.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second that we are approving the revision to the site plan and have read through the findings of fact. We're doing it at the same time without objection. All in favor? And none opposed. Thank you very much, sir. Very, very,
Thanks,
very
Richard.
nice presentation. You made it easy for us.
Try to find a tougher one.
Thank you, sir. You too.
Okay. The next item is the preliminary subdivision plan application for Lloyd A. Wickett for a 15-lot subdivision on Poplar Street, tax map 10, lot 14, case number 1530-A. And the applicant is not here tonight, but Dave is acting on their behalf.
I'm working on it. Okay, so as you know from the sketch plan, 15-lot subdivision, one that's already been taken out, and the remaining 14-plus acres in the rear. Going through the checklist in the subdivision ordinance, I tried to put together some kind of criteria with some answers to the questions so that we can get down through those and talk about them. For submissions under 18-15, location map, and then there's all kinds of language that goes with that, but the location map was in your original packets.
Yep.
Preliminary plan submitted, and as I noted in my memo, that I'm trying to mark up my copy of this plan as far as the lot numbers, 1 through 15, and also the assessor and I sat down and we appointed tax map numbers to each individual lot, which is required through the ordinance. And that was in your previous packet, except for my markups, identifying the map and lot numbers.
Just a second. We'll get to you. Yeah.
I was just wondering if there was an extra map is the only thing. Last time.
I made sure I had one for you.
Okay, I appreciate it. That's what I was wondering. I like to look at it as well.
Yep. And as I say, the markups that I've made on here, what I've done is numbered, this is lot 14,
Yeah.
and this is lot 15. And then they went, on the tax map, it's map 14 the entirety, and then it's 14A, B, C, D, all the way up through to N. So that's just how it's going, we'll reference it for the assessing purposes. Yeah.
That's
Okay. Okay.
The number of acres within the proposed subdivision, that was also included in the sketch plan packet. Proposed lot lines with approximate dimensions, that was also in the sketch plan packet. Proposed easements, forested areas, perennial and intermittent water courses and wetlands, those were shown. You've got one between, a wetland between 12 and 13. You've got a little bit of a wetland behind lot 6. And on lot 1, you see the seasonal stream, kind of drainage swale. Number 5, contour map. And again, tell me if you want this all to be put on a plan. I mean, what I've discussed here will be, this is from our GIS with the state contour maps listed on it. Do you want to see that on the subdivision plan? An overlay on the subdivision plan?
There's nothing really effectively adjacent as far as water, large water bodies. It's a long ways to Mud Pond.
And it's relatively consistent from like 46 foot at the end that Daigle's building on now to 53 feet. And then it slopes back up anywhere from 57 to 64 feet. So it's just kind of a rolling hill down to Poplar Street. But if you would like to see that on the final subdivision plan, we could do that. Plans that any of the subdivision plans that we have archived, they're basically just
There've been some where we've asked for 2-foot contours because it was important, but do you have any issue?
I don't see that it's needed in this case, and it tends to make the plan busy.
yeah.
It really, for what purposes, I don't see.
Okay.
In this case, yeah.
Yeah.
There might be others where it would be important. Okay.
Plans, number 6 is plans and cross-sections of streets, sidewalks, storm sewers, and utilities. As we discussed at the sketch plan, there are no public streets or public infrastructure to be put on there, so it's really not applicable.
And there's no sewerage here now.
Yeah, number 7 is letters from the Water District and Pollution Control. Again, it's private well and septic. Letters from Public Works Director, City Engineer, and Street Commission for the acceptance of streets. There are no streets proposed. Then we get into medium and high-density soils maps. And again, typically, those are required if you're gonna do roads and sidewalks and infrastructure, to see if the soils can support that infrastructure, the roads,
Well,
basically.
every one of these lots has a test pit that, showing that they will support septic systems.
Yes, but it doesn't show that you've got soils that would support a roadway.
Right.
And that's typically what that medium or
And
high
it's
intensity.
unnecessary in this case.
Well, you're gonna have the driveways. on the
Correct.
Public way, so.
Yeah, they'll have to do what they gotta do to make it,
That's right.
make
It
it work.
talks about, number 10, private sewage disposal system locations. As Ted alluded to, test pits are shown on the sketch plan. And then the question requirement for the results, do you want an HHE 200? You can't do an HHE 200 for each lot because you don't know the number of bedrooms that are going to be in each dwelling. Do you want to know what type of soils are at
Well,
those test pits?
they aren't going to get, they gotta get a site locator, site evaluator to give
Well-
them a permit for a septic system, right?
That's correct.
Now, they've got a soil
and
test pit,
The soil test showed that those areas are suitable for septic system.
okay, so, but they've gotta get a site evaluator to give them a permit,
Before I
design,
can let
design their
them build
system
a house.
before they can build a house, so I don't think it's necessary for us to have it in addition to that. They're pretty well covered for that.
The hydrogeologic assessment, I'm falling back on the same thing. It's, the test pits wouldn't be shown if there were unsuitable soils.
Yeah, the big issue there would be highly erodible soils and a steep slope. Yeah,
Correct.
and there's no issue there.
What's the setback from a leach field to a well?
It's 100 feet.
Yep.
However, you can reduce that. There are variants allowed, and that depends on the casement, the number of feet of well casing you put into the ground.
I ask because these are very tight lots, and it looks like there's gonna be possibly potential issue with building
Right.
a septic
And-
and putting
and-
a well in.
And where these test pits are shown, it's showing that you have suitable soils. As you see on number 7, the site that he found for 7, 8, and 9 are way back towards the rear. So with 300 and some odd feet of depth, you could get a well towards the front of the properties.
Okay, but for instance, say someone decided to drill a well on lot number 2 in the northwest corner, 20 feet down from the line, that would make it very difficult to put a leach field on number 3.
That's correct.
It would force that to be put,
But it's not to say that there isn't other suitable soil on there. These aren't the only place that could have been suitable soil.
okay.
They're the
I've
only
seen
ones
lots
who
where
did
there was only one place where and that's why they usually issue a report saying that multiple,
Sites
are
If that's something
available.
you would want to see, I can definitely do
I
that.
don't think that we need to see it, I just think we need to be aware of it.
So is that a first come, first serve? So if somebody puts a well in, the abutting lot has to respect the setback.
That's correct. For the longest time, septic system installers always had to maintain 100 feet from a well. But that wasn't to say that if the septic system went in first, there were no dimensional requirements for well drillers. In fact, the case always has said you could drill that well right in the middle of your leach field. That has since changed. The main state rules for well drillers also now recognize that the cart before the horse, you don't know which it's going to be, so. So that could be the case. He may find he's got a lot that,
Right. It could end up, one fella drilled close to 7 drills near the east line and 5 drills near the west line, 6 is out of luck.
right. I will notify them of that fact.
would it make sense to ask them to make a note on the final subdivision plan that, maybe if they've already got this information, the note on the subdivision plan could address the suitability of the soils and that there are multiple sites, presumably.
Okay, yep.
Or lots that are limited to one particular, because every one of these lots has a test pit location. So if those lots are limited, that should be noted, shouldn't it? If there are multiple locations on each lot, I think, I mean, when you've got 314 by 200 feet,
Familiar with out there.
you ought to be able to find a place
Yeah.
to do it.
And I've seen subdivision plans where they wanted to build their house because of the south-facing or whatever, is where the test pit was, which is fine, as long as you've got another
Well, then you've got to have
another
yeah,
site that you
another
can.
site, so would appear appropriate if he's going to be selling these, presumably the prospective buyers will look at the subdivision plan, and they'll see a note that notes any limitations that
Yep.
might exist.
I
So
would
we'll
think
see
so.
that, and that'll
On the
be,
final.
there'll be some documentation for the final subdivision plan review as to, are these indeed, is there a soils evaluator that is going?
That's who did that.
Okay, but he's gonna be able to note that, yes, there are multiple sites beyond,
Yep,
or this particular lot, say the one next to the wetland,
that's where you've
only
got it.
has one.
Okay, I
If that's the
understand.
case, then we wanna, that should be noted, I would think.
Or shouldn't we just note that there is one location per lot identified, but depending on what's built?
Well, I don't think you need to go that far. It shows that there's a suitable septic, which is what's required. To go beyond that would be, you're asking.
I'll just bring it up to him and
Bring it
question
up.
him and say, are you concerned about well and septic setbacks?
You need 100 feet.
Yeah, as I say, there are variances that you can go down, and then the more casement you put in the ground, the closer you can get.
Yeah, well, for my well, the casement went right down 66 feet to bedrock. And so it was fine, but I had ample separation between,
Well, yeah, you've got plenty of room.
I had more room there, so.
But Dave, if you were issuing a building permit for anybody on this tract of land here, they would have to prove evidence to you that it meets the code of that.
I can't issue a building permit without the HHE 200, which is the septic design. I have to have that
That's what I'm
first
saying.
before.
So somebody, a person would have to cite that plan themselves, because we could talk about the sites all night long and never know that.
Yeah. No, it has to, like Charlie, he still does site evaluations.
Right.
There's a number of them. And that, I have to have that document before I can issue
But
the
as a planning
building.
board, if we approve this tract, all we're really approving is the division of the lands.
Right.
Aren't we? We're not.
And that it has, on each lot, it does have suitable soil for
The
septic.
lot can be developed.
Right.
Yeah, that has
We're
a
not saying
buildable
Yeah.
envelope, yeah.
We are saying, certifying that they're all suitable to build on,
Yes.
Yes.
as a
Yeah.
planning board. Oh, okay.
That there's a building
Because
envelope.
our criteria is dimensional requirements, road frontage,
Sure.
it can support a
And
septic.
there have been court cases in the past where site evaluators certified that there was, suitable soils, and there wasn't.
I've run into that
I've
recently
seen
where
it.
a lot, one guy said there isn't suitable, another guy came and said there was.
With the new laws and the new technology for disposal fields that are out there, it's pretty hard not to find
Yeah,
a site that you can,
there's a number of different technologies that, yeah, like I say, you can almost put them in a swamp,
Really?
almost.
You'll have to show me these new
Oh, yeah.
designs. I'd like to see that.
oh, there's all kinds of crazy stuff out there. It's
I do know that each of these pits, there's just supposed to be a letter from the soil scientist that states, it gives the latitude and longitude of each pit. And that is supposed to be accompanied with the subdivision. You're supposed to have a copy of that letter.
so lat and longe
Where's that?
for east site,
That's not in
All
our,
the subdivisions I've done in
that's not in our ordinance,
recently,
is
it's,
it?
you
I
are
don't remember seeing
required,
that.
the soil scientist is required to issue a letter
Now,
with the latitude and longitude
when
for each
the,
pit.
when the HHE 200 is done, that definitely has that on it.
That goes on for, which goes into your,
Street
your files for what septic system is being installed, but each of these test pits is supposed to be identified.
Is a site evaluator and a soil scientist the same?
I believe so, yes.
Because it's identified as a site evaluator on this plan.
Yeah.
And that should have been issued to the wickets already. It's
I
just
will
a
find
matter
that
of
out.
copying that to you.
So that would be for final. Okay. Number 12, stormwater management plan. And again, this is me answering these questions. There are no proposed streets to greatly increase impervious area. Each lot will include an entrance drive and building footprint, which would be your impervious area for each site. Each individual developed lot will require to utilize best management practices during construction and post-construction to keep the silt and everything from getting into our ditch out there. Once the ground is stabilized, there's no reason why that water can't run into our ditch system, or they can have it stored on site.
And they're all gonna have to get a DOT, highway entrance?
No, this is all within the compact zone, so this is us.
Okay.
Because I'm not familiar enough with the site off the top of my head, there is a drainage ditch along the face of these.
Yes.
Yeah.
So do you have to put in that every entrance will have a culvert
Yes.
installed? So is that?
And every driveway that goes in, and we'll touch on that, but every driveway that goes in has to have a permit from Public Works.
Correct.
It will be sized according to what they need it to be sized with, and at that time, John and I go out and we do, which I'll touch on a little bit further, for site distances.
But your right of way for this road goes back so that that would be within your right of way, isn't
The ditch,
it? Yes.
yes.
So the culvert in fact would be on your right
Yes.
of way. Okay.
And the way that's required is they put in the first one after, could be 20 years, whatever, the products are lasting a lot longer now, but if we re-ditch, then the city is responsible to put in new culverts and size them accordingly.
So do we, as a planning board, though, have to have you do a blanket certification for the subdivision that all can be put in the right of way? Or do you have to do each and every lot to put a culvert installation?
No, whomever buys lot number one, they will go to Public Works and apply for their driveway entrance permit. And with that, again, John and I go out to do the site distances. They then size the culvert. Typically, it's 12 to 18 inch.
The property owner, the lot owner, is responsible to pay for the installation of the culvert.
Yes.
Is what I'm saying. And do you have to issue some sort of a edict that says you have permission to be in the right of way of
No,
the city of Old Town? Okay,
I understand, I'm sorry.
yeah, all right.
No, you're looking like some kind of an easement,
Right.
To have your
I'm
driveway-
just trying to make sure we clarify that.
but no.
Because I don't think I've been on part of a process yet where we're along the face of a public road. We usually have the internal roads of our own,
Right.
so that's all, I was just checking.
No, I understand.
Do these meet site distances, all of them?
When we get to that,
Okay, sorry.
nope, that's okay. Preliminary designs of any bridges or culverts. Again, there are no streets proposed. Only culverts will be the one at their driveway entrances. A standard boundary survey, that was done and included in the sketch plan packet. Lands dedicated to public use. You find that more in open subdivisions where they preserve land that everybody can use, and that is not proposed for this subdivision. Location of all natural features or site elements to be preserved. There are no natural, well, it's all natural feature, but they're individual house lots and they will be landscaped and developed as they see fit. Erosion and sediment control plan, again, there's no major construction going as far as street or infrastructure. When each lot becomes developed, they'll have to follow the same rules as somebody in town would have to, silt fence around the property to keep any runoff onto the site until the site is stabilized.
Something like 3/4 of a mile to that bog around Mud Pond from this site, or is it's even further than that, isn't it?
Let's see, I wish you guys read these things. You'll see that in a few minutes.
Sorry. Sorry, I lost my head.
Just teasing. And again, when a site's being developed, silt fence will be installed. I'm out there. I do footings, foundation, septic. I'm out there 2 or 3 times a week on a lot of these projects, so I'll do a perimeter check of the silt fence. Most of the contractors now, there's enough training out there, and you can register with the state to be a qualified contractor, so they're doing a lot better job than in years past. Certification by surveyor that the information accurately reflects the true condition. His seal and his name is on here. That's telling me that he's signing off on this. Base flood elevation data. This, and again, on this site, I don't know how important it is, but I'll defer to you folks. This proposed subdivision lies within a Zone Z designation on our 1978 firm map. And Zone C is not prone to any floods, other than what you create internally on your own lot. If you get a pond, you're gonna have a little flood, but.
What is the reference elevation? Is there elevation here somewhere that I'm missing?
There isn't. And if that's something you'd want to see, I looked for it, but I did not see it.
Just someplace on the plan?
Well, that elevation would be related to the 100-year flood elevation.
And there's
And if
nowhere-
this is in Zone C, it's outside of that.
Right.
So it's not required.
I mean,
That was
assuming-
my thought process.
Yeah.
I'm assuming the elevation there is gonna be about 180.
Oh, yeah, right down on Pushaw, that's around 120, 121.
So this is up quite a ways, so it'd be 200 maybe.
Could be.
It's actually fairly close to the bog, because you cross the street there and it's not too far.
Yeah, across the street, although,
Let me see where that.
and I
But
pulled that up.
I've done flood studies out there for people, and the elevation is across the street quite a ways towards the bog, so it's not, I'm not putting an official
it's like-
stamp on anything here, but.
No, but
it's-
just looking at the
it's-
topography.
Knowing the area, I think the topography, it's not, a flood study's
So
not required.
we don't need a reference elevation, like just at the,
It can be, it's listed right in this firm panel, what that elevation is. I don't know that they did the flood study.
It didn't give an elevation, it just said not prone to,
Not, right.
it's not necessary for our subdivision plan.
well, it asked for base flood elevation data, but again, my
think-
thought process is it's so far above flood.
Yeah, I think it's 121 feet, don't quote me on that,
Is the bog?
National Vertical Grid Datum of 1929, which is the bog in Pushaw Lake.
And that's where a lot of my letters of map amendment for places on Pushaw.
Right, and it's possible in that topography thing, there might be a listing on what elevation is at the site, on the site. I imagine it's higher than 121 feet.
This does not.
It doesn't have the.
This gives references.
It only gives, but it should have,
There's no reference elevation?
I can look, because this came from our GIS, so I can look on that.
yeah. So it's gotta be higher than whatever this is, but
Yeah.
it's not a lot of work to figure it out, so it can be added if you feel it's
Yeah, well,
necessary.
and I think we'd want to make sure
Yep.
we're not asking for survey grade elevation, just a reference somewhere on the plan on one corner of the subdivision to the other.
Yep, I can
Just
do
a
that.
reference that, you know, people could just be aware of it, I guess. It's not necessary, though, is it? And we're not asking,
But if that's what you want on the plan, that's fine with me.
okay.
It's a matter of looking at the firm map and looking at a topography, even.
Yeah, just come, it's long, within
If the topography says one of the grade lines is 250 feet, which I think you're gonna be in the, up in the 230, 240
I would
feet
think.
is what that, I think that's gonna come back as.
Okay,
So,
I can do that. Landscaping plan, again, I think of street trees. I live on a tree street. No proposed public streets, and each individual lot owner will just be taking care of their own landscaping. Significant resources including deer wintering areas, other important plant or wildlife areas with visual significance. There are none shown on the MGIS. There are now, as you say, once you go across the street, down over towards the bog, that's a huge deer wintering area that travels that whole corridor. Location of any trail system that crosses the property. There are no trails other than you've got, what they've got lined up as the old road.
I gotta point something out here.
Excuse me. Thank you, I'm sorry.
These roads being shown here, what it does is, unless it's noted, which it's not, lots 1 through 15 will now have the right to use those roads. And so it has to be either noted that they're not to be used, or they should be taken off the map completely.
So note on plan, old roads.
Well, how would they have the rights to use an old road if it was?
It's shown on a subdivision map, becomes an easement, and all the people that buy into this subdivision have the right to use those access.
So the old road that crosses lots 3 and 4,
Yep,
a guy from lot 13 could come down there and use that road.
use that road for,
But it's fine if it's removed.
get rid of it if they don't wanna
Thank you.
have that.
Well, I would think they wouldn't want to, prejudice the,
Yeah, but it's in statute, and it.
so that creates a right of adverse possession, or?
No, it's not. It's just, it becomes an easement that all these people are allowed to use that point, even just to walk up and down it. So it's not,
Gotcha.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, we don't want to burden,
even the center line of the old road in the back should probably be removed. It's not necessary for what we're doing.
And lot 11 should have that.
Yes, in a lot 11,
So
That's
three,
unknown.
3,
4 and 11, and part of 10.
okay, 11.
Out of 10?
Well, it's on
Yeah,
Yeah.
part of 10.
gotcha.
yeah, these are just segments that they show, they obviously go further than that.
Yeah. Well, it would be pertain to the segment shown, but it would cause problems if number 3 what?
Just make them disappear.
Well, I'm aware of prescriptive rights of some of these old roads, depends on,
Well, this isn't a
This is-
prescriptive thing because
just
it's
just on a
on a
subdivision.
subdivision. If you show a road,
Property and nobody's
then
here.
anyone that buys a property in that subdivision has the right to use that road.
Really?
It has to be that way.
I didn't know
because
that.
if-
Because it's there on the plan.
Well, otherwise, you'd have to go through and give an easement right to each one of the property owners. So if I built the road in here, right, and put lots on it, all the lots that are abutting that road, or all the people in the subdivision, actually, or all the lots in the subdivision.
It's a lot like in bigger subdivisions with paper streets.
Yes.
Until those are abandoned, everybody has the right to walk those.
Right. Otherwise, you would end up having to go through and describe an easement for each lot sold. By just, once it's drawn, the easement's automatically created for the lots that are purchased.
Well, I'm very familiar with old discontinued town roads.
Oh, I'm sure
and
you are. That's a
access for
whole
timber,
nother
but
area.
that's a
that-
different prescriptive rights of adverse possession.
Yeah, that's a whole
I
different.
I hadn't heard that, though, so that's,
It makes sense to hear it.
so if he doesn't want everybody to have rights to
Yeah,
cross,
he probably does not want that.
then he probably should, yeah, then, well, thank you. That's good
Yes.
advice, I didn't know that.
23, letter sent to the State Historic Preservation Commission. And as you saw in your packet, I did send a letter to them, and they'll get, it takes time for them to get back to us. I think there's one person that works in that office, and so that'll be as part of the final subdivision submittal. Fire protection.
Well, I did hear that General Robert E. Lee, he took vacation, during the Civil War and came up here, and it was a skirmish.
It was.
So we may have to, yeah, it might be a historic site, so.
Fire protection. Deputy Chief Dave Daniel has reviewed the proposed subdivision. We've looked out, he and I both went out. We looked at the area to see if there's any place along the road that we could do a dry hydrant. There's not. And he is not, and I don't think you'll find many firefighters that are a big advocate of the underground storage tanks simply because they don't get maintained. And when you think you've got a water supply and you head out to a fire and you don't have it, it's worse than if you know you don't have any water supply.
But they're, I mean, less than a mile from the bridge there, they could put a pump over the bridge and get water there.
When you're heading to the scene on how you're gonna go, take care of this, then think you've got water and you don't. And he's gonna be getting us a letter.
Do the new building codes require sprinkler systems and?
In Maine, they keep, the state, when they amend the IBC codes, they take it out.
I would think that would take care of that.
I would take care of a lot of things. And maybe someday, I mean, there are a lot of states that you build a new house, and the problem with Maine is they won't let plumbers do sprinkler systems. Because you could do a 13R system, and it's gonna work fine, it's gonna save your house. The problem is, when you have a fire up here and you're on a well, first thing that usually happens is electrical gets shorted out.
They kill power.
Then you have, you're depending on, again, like the fire department, you're depending on something to work, and it's, excuse me, daily estimated traffic volumes. I went through the ITE manual. Their standard is 9.57 trips per day per dwelling unit. That would mean an additional 133.98 trips per day generated on Poplar Street. Our ordinance requires if it's over 200, then you have to have a traffic engineer actually do the study. Again, it's within the urban compact. When they do their driveway permits, Mr. Rulo or Steve Rideout and I go out and will assess the placement. Speed is 35 miles an hour, which would require 250-foot sight distance in either direction. My wife and I were up Saturday. We went out. There are 3 and a possible 4th lot that the city is gonna have to dictate where that driveway is. The remaining lots, you can put it where you want to. So that will be something.
Now, is that something that's gonna be put on the plan?
We could do that if you want to, or we could just,
Well, when they come for a permit, then that's, you
Then
guys
we'd
will
have
say,
to go
hey,
out
this
and
is
look at
where,
it.
yeah, and you'll know where that is, so. Not necessary?
Do you know that information now?
do I know, I don't know where they have to be, I just know that, exactly where they have to be, I just know that you're not gonna be able to go in the middle, or you can't go to this end, you gotta go at this end.
So those lots probably should have that
You want those shown?
Well, not shown, but noted that
Special.
that there's special consideration.
Driveway restrictions.
Yeah, you don't have to get specific, just
No,
note
just-
which lots are impacted based on your
Yep,
review.
I can do that.
That makes the person buying the lot aware. It
Because a lot
gives
of
them
people in their
notice.
mind, they look at that lot and they've got it pictured how they're gonna,
Right.
okay? Phosphorus control plan. Again, the amount of disturbance that's gonna be done, and I understand a whole lots of ways that you can introduce phosphorus into the system. It could be as much as you got your big lawn and now you get Green Thumb or whomever putting all kinds of stuff on your lawn. That is not something that I feel that the subdivider can control. I'd be more worried again if there are public streets and infrastructure, because you're gonna be ripping and tearing everything up.
Or if they were adjacent, that they were lots on Pushaw, then
Right.
that's a concern.
And again, they can either store their own water on their property or through drainage or into the ditch system on Poplar Street. The nearest water body, not the bog, but the water body, as the crow flies, is 1.5 miles away.
Is Mud Pond closer than that or further?
It's closer, but the topography's not
Right.
gonna get it there. Right title and interest, that was included with their deed in the sketch placket. And then your groundwater impact assessment for commercial or industrial development, there's gonna be no commercial or industrial uses there.
Okay.
Any questions? Comments? Also, I'll make a note, on the final subdivision, the three-phase language is being struck, that's gonna disappear. Where they talk about, where they have it on his, sketch plan.
Okay,
And if you want to know, on your sketch plans, you see lots 1 through 13. The lot that is to be conveyed to Greg Daigle, I have numbered as 14. And the remaining land is 15. For tax map purposes, the original piece, which is gonna be the remaining, will always stay lot 14 until further subdivided. Then lots 1 through 14 are going to be lots, tax map 10, lot 14A through lot 14N. And Travis worked on that with me.
okay. So the next step is to get this dressed up and dolled up?
Everything that we've gotten involved, do you have any comments, or?
The only one I have comment on, I guess, more or less, is, I mean, I know it doesn't affect your subdivision out there, is 25 when you talk about the traffic.
Mm-hmm.
If you know where I live or whatever now, we just barely make it out of a driveway now because that driveway's been there for 100 years. It's an old farm,
Right.
but they fly up over that hill there and it's just a short distance. There's trees there, this blocks it. The bank, there's a bank there.
Right.
And if you came out of my dooryard, like I say, if they're flying up over them, I mean, they're either gonna hit the ditch or they're gonna hit you. Because I know it's 35 there, but I'm not sure what we can really do. They put a mirror on the telephone pole before, which Steve put out there, but the mirror ended up coming down because it was all paper on the back of that, but
And you're correct, but for the subdivision, it's not something that we can look
Yeah, I
at,
know.
but as a
it's just
municipal
more traffic going out.
employee,
There's just that much more traffic going out again.
we can definitely try and do something, maybe more presence out there, or with police and patrol?
I know they got a blind side, and I know it's 35, but you fly up over there, even 35 or whatever, and I mean, there's no distance there to my driveway.
What's your name, sir? I'm sorry.
Alan Wickett
Okay, Alan, I thought it was.
on Wickett Lane.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's where it dives right down around the corner. The Bumblebee
Right.
truck used to be right in that driveway across from you there.
The one,
The yellow and black Chevy they used to have a yellow and black Chevy right in that driveway that
But
I can,
there's nothing that we can do as far as the subdivision plan is concerned, but I would think Public Works could perhaps add a warning sign, you know,
I'll
hidden
agree.
drives.
I mean, not that it's gonna slow them up, and I thought about before, even the police sitting there or whatever, they can pick up the speeders if they want it, because when they come up over the hill, there's just a honking on them.
Oh, yeah, they're not doing 35.
I drive out there a lot in my daily inspections and they come up on you quick.
Or when you pull over the driveway or whatever in them, I mean, I see them heading for the ditch. But
I will talk to public safety about that.
I mean, that's my worst concern, I guess, for that part out there, just more traffic.
Well, of course, all of the traffic for the subdivision at that point are gonna be going fairly slow, but it's the ones that are already using the road that are the problem.
There's kids out there that cruise, but when I grew up out there, and it's the same place, we was the last house on the road. You could walk all the way to the lake, not even meet a car. But now, naturally,
Yeah.
the traffic's there, but I mean, it's a road that's been there, I mean, it's a driveway that's been there for, I'd say at least probably the last 100 years or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So, but there's just more and more going up through, and they're just a cruiser.
Well, you mentioned a mirror on the pole.
Well, they put a mirror up on the pole. If you got good eyesight, it's one of the mirrors that makes everything smaller. It's a big one.
Right.
Unless you got good eyesight, I mean, you can't really see the car coming up. You can see headlights, or it doesn't bother at nighttime. You can get out analyze. You can see the lights coming. But the one that they put up there had a paper background on it, and it got wet, and it just fell back onto the road. It was about that big around.
Yeah.
But it's like the mirrors you have on your side of the pickup on the right-hand side of your car, and everything is smaller. But unless you get good eyes to look up there and see whether you're looking at the road or whether you're looking at a car
I
coming.
don't know if Public Works, if that would be something the city,
I will talk to them.
you know, they get a better mirror, get something bigger.
There's one in Bangor on Valley Ave and,
14th Street Extension.
no, it's beyond, Carlisle's used to live up there, I can't think.
Oh, Bruce Road?
Bruce Road. And that one, you can, no matter which direction you're coming, you can see it. It really
You
doesn't
can,
shrink
huh?
it up that much, so.
The other ones shrunk it right up, and they never bothered putting it back up once it fell, but like I say, it didn't really do much good, at least unless you had perfect eyes, I guess, but.
Well, that would be a Public Works issue. We can't really burden the subdivision over that.
Oh, no,
Right, but I
that's what I said,
can,
but-
I'll definitely follow through
But
on
it
that.
is more traffic that's gonna be out there because of that. And naturally, it's a one-way, I mean, they can't go around, everybody comes back the same way
Yeah.
so.
I understand. That is a windy, twisty road down through there.
Oh, it's the hill part that,
Yeah.
Well, they take the turn from Poplar onto Kirkland. A lot of times they're on two wheels.
yeah.
Going around that corner.
Yeah. I've seen that.
I know, I had a motorcycle driver call me one time about, why can't we keep the gravel off that corner? Because everybody's in the ditch when they're going around the corner.
They actually one got killed down there once on a motorcycle.
So I guess what I'm looking for from you, and I will be in touch with Mr. Wickett the next day or two, let him know what I've got noted here for the final plans, concerns about the wells, and just to be noted, are we pretty,
Any other concerns?
Does this plan have to be certified by a professional engineer?
no,
Okay, 'cause this,
It's not a
surveyor.
structure.
okay, but with all the noted changes and everything you're talking about, aren't they within the purview of an engineer that certifies that that plan is
the site evaluator will take care of his aspect of it. The
Okay.
wetland guy takes care of his aspect of it, so
Okay.
no.
And you've got a surveyor that's certifying that the lots are accurately depicted.
Okay.
But there's no structure being built.
No, I just wanted to verify.
No, I hear you.
When he gets when he does do this, it's gonna be buildable and not, okay.
Okay, well, the suggested motion is to approve the preliminary plan with the waivers and additions as presented.
So move that motion that you just,
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unopposed. Thank you very much.
Is this gonna require a, public hearing?
This is it.
This is it.
The final
This is it.
subdivision plan.
Right.
Well, you know, they're both public
Just the
meetings.
abutters need to be notified.
So this
Right,
doesn't,
I noticed you had that list here, Dave,
We had
with
the,
the public
the
notice.
sketch plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which that was a public
so
hearing,
this would be considered the public hearing?
Yes.
Right.
as
Thank you.
will the final.
and all were notified, and they didn't,
Right.
other than Alan.
Did it require notification in the paper or anything local like that?
It is in the paper.
It
Yeah,
is?
it
Okay.
is.
Okay.
There's a copy.
Yeah, it
of
went
it.
in the Times, and then the abutters notified.
I can't read, so I wouldn't know that.
Okay, the next item is any old or new business, and under old business, I did ask about any potential Maine Municipal Association workshops for planning board members. Did you have a chance to look at that?
No.
Again, just,
You can keep that.
there will be a final map that'll be the final map.
Everything that we've talked about will be referenced on that.
So that one's just a sketch.
Yeah.
That will be available, and then there'll be 2 paper copies, 2 Mylar that the board signs, and then it has to get recorded at the Registry of Deeds,
All right.
reflecting everything that's been
That
discussed
one's
tonight.
pretty close,
Yeah,
but
that's what I figured, is just to get the existing roads and stuff that's gonna be offered or anything like that now.
Yep.
It gives me a better idea.
Thank you very much,
Thank you for
Alan.
coming.
Appreciate it.
good night.
No, I have not had a chance.
Okay, well,
Budget time.
yeah, I understand. It's not a big deal, but if there is one that comes up, I would encourage
Yes,
everybody
I
that
will, I
wants to
promise you
go
I'll
to go
look
to
into
it.
that.
The other thing is, I've tried to do some recruiting for our vacancy and haven't had much luck. I did put the arm on Steve Belanger and said, you know, you quit on us, so you gotta help me come up with I said, you know, you got all kinds of people here, some of them have to live in Old Town, but he said he'd get back to me.
Okay.
That was a month ago, so.
With budgets in mind, I always sing you guys praises, and I always try and let you know how fortunate I am to have you all here. So in my budget this year, I've wrangled a stipend for each one of you serving on the board.
Oh, I thought you were gonna bring coffee.
No. I was able to come up with $200 per member
Really?
for serving on this board, so.
Well, that's.
Unless
neat.
they cut it to save a mill rate, I
Well,
don't
they
know.
probably will, yeah, but, yeah.
I would
I
be
do-
all right with that,
It's a
too.
thought that counts. Dave. It's a
But
thought that counts.
I truly appreciate you guys and
Well, thank you.
all the work you
Thank you.
do.
It's nice to be thought of.
I sent, no, we'll wait. Language for the 40-acre exemption from subdivision law. It's pretty cut and dry, as I read last week. A lot of 40 acres, 40 or more acres must be counted as a lot, except when a municipality has by ordinance, or the municipal reviewing authority has by regulations, elected not to count lots of 40 acres, 40 or more acres as lots for the purpose of this subchapter, when the parcel of land being divided is located entirely outside any shoreland area as defined, Title 38, Section 435, or a municipality's shoreland zoning ordinance. With that being said, I would like to propose that to you folks, which you can hash out. I'm just trying to figure out where in the subdivision ordinance I should put this. There's a
And-
purpose and statutory review that goes through a whole host of other things. I was thinking at the very end of that, because the last section of this is timber on a parcel being subdivided has not been harvested and all of that. I was thinking that that might be a good place to put it.
That makes
And
sense.
once again, you're just basically want to exempt lots over 40 acres or more
From having to go
from
through what.
subdivision review,
Right.
which is kind of in the unorganized territories that's existing
Everywhere, yeah, right.
state law.
So I will put that together. For our next meeting. And that will be something that you will review, and then that will have to go to council as an adoption in the ordinance.
Right.
I've talked with a couple of the council, and they don't seem to think there's any big deal.
Well, it brings our ordinance in line with the
A lot of
state,
others, yeah. And what the state wants us to have, so. With that being said, I'm gonna do another executive session after this for a minute, but,
Uh-oh.
so, we
Do
can
we need-
adjourn?
Do we need to shut off the,
Yeah.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?